Foodworks.online Professional includes thousands of reference foods for use when creating resources such as recipes, meal plans, and food records. However, if you cannot find a specialized food in the data sources, or if you have specific nutrient data for a food, you can create your own food, which you can then use in your resources alongside the Foodworks reference foods. In this video, I will be showing you how to create a food. Specifically, I will discuss creating a food for the workspace, completing the information on the General tab, entering nutrient information for the food, creating and copying common measures, using the navigation pane, printing reports, and creating a food for a client. Let's begin. First, it is important to understand that you can create a food as a resource for your workspace, which is then available for you to include in all resources wherever they are in your workspace. Alternatively, you can create a custom food for a specific client. Keep in mind that foods initially created as a workspace resource can be copied to one or more clients, and foods created for a specific client can be copied to different clients. I will show you how to do this later in the video. To create a new food for the workspace, you will first need to open or create a workspace. Today, I will be working in an example professional workspace. In the navigation pane, click the plus icon and select Food from the drop-down. On the Food's General tab, enter the name for the food. I will be creating peanut butter as an example food for this video. Peanut butter does already exist as a reference food in Foodworks. However, for this video, I want to create a specialized, specific brand of peanut butter that is not in the data sources. In the name field, I will type peanut butter, example brand, and the name of this food now appears in the navigation pane. This resource is currently in a draft version, and any information I enter will be automatically saved. A draft resource is indicated with a small purple icon next to its name in the navigation pane. A resource will remain as a draft until you either choose to finalize and publish it or delete it. Note that published resources can still be edited later on if needed. On the General tab, there are a variety of optional fields you may wish to use when creating a food. The first optional field is the tag field. A resource tag is a user-defined label that you can create and apply to any resource within the workspace. Tags are color-coded and can be used to filter your resources in the navigation pane. An example of tags you may wish to use are vegan, gluten-free, or low sodium. The food I am creating is vegan, so I will create a new tag and add this to the food. The next optional fields include the ID1 and ID2 fields, which are searchable terms in the navigation pane and in the food or ingredients grid of a different resource. This means you can enter this food into a recipe or a meal plan by searching for its name or its ID. An example of when you may like to use these ID fields is if you are copying the nutrition information for the food from an external source that has a number or letter ID associated with it and you want to record this in Foodworks. I will write an example ID in the ID1 field. The next optional fields are the description and notes field, which can be useful for documenting extra information about the food. Note that the information in these fields is not searchable. For now, I will leave both the description and notes field blank. Finally, on the General tab, you can see that an activity log exists that tracks when the resource was first created and will record changes that occur in this resource, which can be very helpful information to refer back to, especially if you are collaborating with other users in your Foodworks Online organization on resources. Now let's quickly discuss using the navigation pane. The navigation pane will display all of the resources and clients you have access to in your workspace. If you wish to view tags and IDs for the resources on the navigation pane, you can do so by selecting the ellipsis button in the navigation pane and selecting Show Tags and Show IDs. To remove these tags and IDs, select the ellipsis button again and unselect the checkboxes. You can also use the search field to search for a food by its name, whether it's in a draft or a published version, or you can search for its ID after it has been published. To filter the navigation pane with tags, you can click Apply Filters and select a tag. For example, if I select vegan, the food that I've just created is the only resource displayed in the navigation pane. This can be very helpful for filtering and sorting your resources and clients in your workspace. I will remove this filter for now. Let's move on to the Nutrients tab, which is where you will enter the food's nutrient composition from either entering all of the nutrient data from an external source or by basing its analysis on a similar item from the Foodworks data source. You can also use a hybrid of these approaches by basing the analysis of the food on an item from the Foodworks data source and also then entering specific data for some of the nutrients, which is what I will do in my example today. To base the analysis for a food on an item from the Foodworks data source, in the Base Analysis on drop-down list, select Other Item. Then you need to search for and select a food. I will search for peanut butter and select an option. The values from this reference food are then imported and shown in the default and result column. Now, to enter specific values for this product, type the values for nutrients in the override field, which you may have from a product nutrition information panel or from a supplier. The information typed in the override field will then override the information from the reference food. Keep in mind that when you create a food, you can enter all of the nutrient data for the food without using any of the reference data from Foodworks. You can also just enter values for the specific nutrients that you require. You do not need to complete them all. The method you choose and the information you include when creating your food is entirely up to you. Two other options you can also choose is to set the nutrient values to 0 or unknown. To do this, simply select either option from the Base Analysis on dropdown. You could then enter preferred values for particular nutrients if you had this data from another source. Note that when you set values to unknown, question marks are shown for these nutrients. The next tab is the Measures tab. When you create a custom food, by default, its measure is in grams. However, on this tab, you can add common measures, import measures from another similar item, or enable volume measures such as milliliters and liters. To add a common measure, select Add Measure and enter the name and its corresponding weight. I will write example and enter 50 grams. If you like, you can also add a description for the measure, but I will be leaving this blank. Now, when this food is entered into another resource, such as a recipe, meal plan, or food record, its common measures will be listed to select from. If you also toggle on Default Measure, it will be the first option to select from when entering the food into another resource. To import measures from a similar item, click Copy Measures and VCF, then search and select a similar item from the Foodworks database. I will search for peanut butter, select an option, and click Confirm. You can see that the common measures for this reference food are now listed for my custom food. And when this food is entered into another resource, these measures will also be listed to select from. If there are measures that have been imported that you no longer want to include, you can select a checkbox and click Delete. To enable volume measures for liquid foods such as milliliters and liters, you need to provide a volume conversion factor. To do this, enter how much a particular volume of a liquid food weighs after toggling on volumetric measures. For example, 100 milliliters of a liquid could weigh 105 grams. You can also select the liquid toggle, which then means the analysis pane will show the analyses per 100 milliliters. After entering the volume conversion factor, you will be able to select volume measures when entering the food into another resource. However, as my food is not a liquid, I will remove this information. After completing the required fields on each tab, your food has been created. You can now view the nutrient analysis for this food on the analysis pane on the right-hand side. If the analysis pane is collapsed, you can click the expander arrow to display it. You can show the analysis for the food per 100 grams or enter a specific gram amount you wish to see the analysis for. To print a report for this food, you first need to finalize and publish the food, then click the ellipses button and select Generate Report from the drop-down. You can then modify the information that is included by manually selecting specific checkboxes and clicking Update Preview to view the changes before saving or printing the report. You can also choose to include or exclude page numbers and dates in the additional customization box. Now, to quickly remind you, I created this food as a workspace food. However, you can also create a new food for a specific client. To do this, first, in the navigation pane, select the client you wish to create a food for. Then, select the Client's Resources tab and click Create New and select Food from the drop-down. I will name the food Example Food and click Publish. Now, you can see this food is stored in the Client's Resources table in the All tab and Foods tab. I also mentioned at the beginning of the video that you can move resources from the workspace to a client or from one client to another client. To move one of the foods I just created for this client to another, I simply open the food, select the ellipsis button and click Copy to Client. I then select the client and click Copy. Now, when I select this client on the navigation pane, you can see the food that I have just copied in the Client's Resources table. If you want to move a workspace food to a client, this is done in a similar process. From the navigation pane, I will select the peanut butter food that I have just created and click Copy to Client from the ellipses dropdown and select a client. You can now see this food is stored in the Client's Resources table. This function is helpful if you accidentally create a food for the workspace that was meant to be a client's custom food, or if you create a custom food for a client that was actually meant for another client. You can move foods and resources around the workspace as required. This brings us to the end of the video. I hope this video has taught you all the information you need to start creating your own foods in Foodworks.online Professional. For more video resources, please click the thumbnail on this screen. Thank you for watching.